Hello, welcome to the UCONN Hartford Chemistry Department. Today we'll take you on a tour to the chemistry labs and familiarize you with the department's laboratory safety policies and procedures. As you enter the chemistry laboratory, you'll be greeted with your first laboratory safety sign. There is no food, beverage, candies, or gum allowed, and the wearing of shorts, sandals, or tank tops while working in the lab is prohibited. Wearing lab safety goggles is required. The campus has two teaching labs as it offers chemistry courses from 1122 to 1128, as well as organic chemistry. Reagents and unknowns are prepared in the laboratory preparation room, where you can also find copies of the safety data sheets, also known as the SDS, the chemical hygiene plan, the chemical inventory list, and other such materials. In your first laboratory meeting, your instructor will assign a specific drawer that you will be using for the entire semester. You are responsible for keeping this drawer clean and orderly. Above your assigned drawer, you'll find an electrical outlet, a vacuum, an air, and a gas outlet that you'll be using for certain experiments. Aside from keeping your benchtop clean, you are responsible for keeping your sink and wash station clean and free of debris and paper products. In every laboratory, you'll find the GHS, or the Globally Harmonized System pictograms. Notice that each secondary reagent you'll be using has pictograms depicting specific dangers that are associated with it. Two of the most important pieces of equipment in the chemistry laboratory are the analytical and top-loading balances. Most of the experiments you'll be performing will utilize one of these. Certain pieces of equipment are not found in the student drawers, but will be located on the common shelves in each of the labs. The pH meters for both labs are located at the top of the common shelves. In some experiments, we will need to separate the liquid and solid components of a mixture with a centrifuge. Each lab has its own set of centrifuges. An FT-IR spectrometer can be used to identify chemicals with an infrared light source. Certain experiments in general chemistry will use the UV-Vis spectrophotometers to calculate the concentration of a solution through the absorbance values. A melting point apparatus is used to determine the melting point of a substance. A laboratory oven can be found in each lab. This can be used to dry your products or glassware. Before you start an experiment, you'll find all the chemical reagents and other special equipment or glassware not found in your individual drawer on top of the reagent cart. Chemical reagents should remain on your cart unless your instructor says otherwise. On the instructor's benchtop, you'll find the model set up for your experiment. Each of the labs is equipped with an audio-visual system where the instructor will project additional information for the experiment. Now, let's begin our overview on laboratory safety. Your safety is always our top priority in the lab. There are three important aspects of lab safety: accident prevention, awareness of your surroundings, and preparedness for lab work and emergencies. Prevention is one of the best safety tools to stop accidents from ever happening. To prevent mishaps and facilitate a proper response when an accident occurs, it is important to always be aware of one's surroundings. Preparation for lab work and emergencies can usually keep minor accidents from growing more severe. It is important to follow the safety protocol for proper lab attire. Eye protection must be worn at all times while in the laboratory. Specifically, only fitted chemical splash goggles are allowed in the teaching laboratories. Prescription eyeglasses, sunglasses, welding glasses, or open-sided safety glasses are not acceptable eye protection. It is also recommended that contacts not be worn while in the lab. However, if you elect to wear contacts while in the lab, it is strongly recommended that you bring the contact cleaning solution in the event your eyes become irritated. Even though you may not be working with chemicals, others around you may be. Remember, lab goggles must remain on for the entire duration of the lab period. There are several rules concerning lab attire. A student without a lab gown will be dismissed from the laboratory. Also, full-length pants must cover the entire legs. Wearing sandals, clogs, ballet flats, or other shoes that expose the feet are not allowed. Any student who does not adhere to these requirements will be dismissed from the laboratory. Long hair should be tied back when working in the lab to prevent any related accidents. Also, it is advised not to wear your best clothes since chemical contact may damage them.
It is recommended to wear gloves in the lab, especially when dealing with hazardous chemicals, not just acids and bases. Those with sensitive skin should wear gloves when working in the lab. There are a number of things you can do to prevent chemical and physical injury. Cell phones and portable music devices are not allowed in the lab. However, laptops or iPads are required in the lab and should be deposited immediately in the assigned and designated area.
Also, do not place pen, pencils, or rulers in or around your mouth as they may be contaminated with chemicals. Bringing any food or drink inside the lab is also prohibited. To err on the side of caution, avoid touching your face while in the lab. Keep in mind that the application of cosmetics, including lip balm, while in the laboratory is not allowed. The lockers outside the labs are for student use. Secure your locker with the padlock found in your assigned laboratory drawer. Always remember to be careful, pay attention, and be aware of your surroundings. There are many things to be aware of, and knowledge can keep you safe and prevent accidents in the lab. It is very important to familiarize yourself with the equipment that you'll be working with to prevent accidents from occurring. Before use, you must inspect your glassware for chips, cracks, or other defects. If you ever break a piece of glassware throughout the course of the semester, discard it in the broken glassware container and replace it with a new one. The small expense to replace a broken item promptly is minor compared to a laceration to the hand and multiple stitches later. Students are responsible for keeping and maintaining their glassware and equipment neat and clean. Instructors are responsible for checking these drawers from time to time. Some experiments require special equipment that is not found in your drawer, like Bunsen burners, clamps, and other such items. These may be found in the labeled common shelves or on the reagent cart in the laboratory. Please remember to put back the equipment where you found it, as other students will need to use it as well. Remember, if you are unsure of how to use something, ask. Your instructor is there to help. As you might imagine, you need to be aware of the chemicals you work with and their proper handling technique. Reagents for the experiment are placed and labeled either on the reagent cart or in one of the hoods for you. Please leave them in their designated area. Students are not to bring any reagent bottle to their bench top unless your instructor says so. There are 3 things to keep in mind about reagents. First, some chemical names look and sound very similar, so read the label carefully before you dispense the chemical. Next, chemical and waste disposal are very expensive, so take only what you need. Measure only the amount that you need to minimize waste. When you refrain from taking too much reagents back to your lab space, you prevent excess waste and a large chemical disposal cost. Additionally, this will help minimize cleanup in the event of a spill. The last thing to remember is to keep your work area clean and clutter-free to reduce unwanted transfer of chemicals to items like paper, pens, pencils, or calculators. Once again, prevention is the best way to avoid a lab accident. For every chemical you use in the lab, there is a safety data sheet, otherwise known as the SDS. This gives detailed information about the nature of a given chemical, including its reactivity, flammability, and any health issues that may be associated with it. Safety data sheets may be accessed using the computer in the laboratory. Hard copies are located inside the laboratory preparation room, HTB room 322. More information on the proper use of chemicals is found in the university's chemical hygiene plan. Each laboratory also has a workplace hazard assessment that helps to identify the required personal protective equipment for each laboratory. Proper disposal of chemicals is a very important aspect for the safety and well-being of our fellow citizens, our environment, and ourselves. Federal and state regulations concerning hazardous waste disposal have increased over recent years, and waste policies must be strictly adhered to. Each lab has a labeled hazardous waste container inside a designated fume hood. Any chemicals must be disposed of in their proper waste container. Broken glassware and chemically contaminated glassware such as pipettes and capillaries are to be disposed of in a broken glassware container located within each laboratory. Chemical waste and broken glassware should never be disposed of in the trash or garbage can. Speaking of chemicals, there are 4 ways that chemicals can be introduced into the body: ingestion, inhalation, absorption, and injection. To avoid ingestion, never place items near your mouth. Even seemingly benign things like your pen or pencil may have become contaminated while on your workbench and should therefore never be placed in or near your mouth. Some experiments may produce vapors that are noxious or use solvents that are very volatile and toxic at high enough levels. In all cases, these experiments should be performed in the fume hood, which ventilates the workspace. To encourage proper airflow, the fume hood sash should never be lifted higher than the sash stop. Keep the hood sash closed as much as possible. Keep all apparatuses and chemicals at least 6 inches back from the face of the hood. Occasionally, an experiment might ask you to record the smell of a reaction as a qualitative measurement of the reaction's progress. To safely smell the chemical, wave your hand over the reaction flask to waft the scent towards you. This minimizes your exposure as you identify odors. Never smell the flask directly. There are several preventative measures that can limit possible chemical absorption. Proper attire, as previously discussed, offers good protection for chemical absorption. Moreover, the recommended use of gloves offers an added measure of protection against absorption in the event of.
If you have an accidental spill, rinse the affected area under cold water for 15 minutes to reduce exposure to chemical absorption. Notify the instructor, who will line up emergency care if necessary. Finally, always wash your hands at the end of the lab period. This will prevent you from tracking chemicals back to your dorm, home, or apartment.
The final way to introduce chemicals into your body is via injection. The most common method of injection is an accidental cut with a contaminated piece of glassware. There are two ways that you could minimize the risk of chemical injection. First, make sure you are not working with broken or chipped glassware. Second, be cautious with handling glassware. Too much force will cause them to break. For example, applying too much pressure on glass tubing or forcing a thermometer through a rubber stopper may cause the glass to break in your hand. To reduce the risk of injury in this case, wet the glass with a little bit of water or glycerin to help the glass slide in more easily. It is also advised to wrap the glass with a rag. Some health conditions can affect your laboratory experience and may require additional precautions when working in the lab. These are color blindness, pacemakers, chemical allergies, pregnancies, and contact lenses. Color blindness can be an issue, as some experiments may require students to base results on the observation of color change. Some experiments may involve equipment which can interfere with pacemakers. Some experiments may use a substance to which you may be allergic. Some of the experiments may involve the use of reagents whose exposure may not be safe for those who are pregnant. There is a risk of eye injury if reagents enter the eye and react with the contact lens material. If any of these special conditions apply to you or any other medical conditions that concerns your ability to perform in the lab, you should inform your instructor at the beginning of each semester to determine reasonable accommodations or to arrange for alternative assignments. A list of chemicals that you may be exposed to is available. You are advised to contact your personal physician to determine what is best for your specific situation. You must arrive at the lab prepared. In other words, read the experiment and complete the pre-lab assignment before you come to the lab. Please be aware that the pre-lab assignment for the experiment is available a week before your scheduled lab and is due exactly by midnight of your scheduled lab. After the due date, you may not be able to complete this.
Before entering the lab, place your backpacks and coats inside the lockers outside the lab. These lockers are first come, first serve. However, please do not forget to wear your mask, bring a laboratory coat, a copy of your experiment, safety goggles, a pen, a calculator, and your personal laptop. Also, make sure you are in proper laboratory attire. Long pants, closed-toed shoes, and remember the no-skin policy from pants to shoes. Failure to comply with these requirements will result in dismissal from the laboratory.
As you enter the lab, sign in and go to your assigned laboratory drawer. Unlock the padlock from your drawer with the key provided by your instructor or from a designated area. Go back to your locker and secure it. Please remember to return the key to the designated place so other students can use this too. When you enter the laboratory, immediately go to your work area and put on your lab safety goggles and laboratory gown. Next, listen to your instructor for any additional information or special experiment modification. If available, watch the corresponding pre-lab video or PowerPoint presentation. When you are done with the experiment, take the key from your instructor or from the designated area and unlock your locker outside. Bring in the padlock to secure your lab drawer and return the key to your instructor or in the designated area. In an event that an accident occurs in the lab, certain tools will help you respond. In each lab, you'll find a first aid kit hung on the entrance wall. A fire extinguisher can be found near the entrance or back door of each lab.
These are only to be used by the instructor overseeing the lab or other safety personnel. Students should respond to fires by notifying the instructor, evacuating, or dialing 911.
An eye wash fountain is located either at the front or the side of the lab. An emergency shower is also located at the front or the side of the lab.
Both the emergency fire blanket and emergency gas shutoff valve are located at the front of the laboratory. In the event of a gas leak, notify the instructor and, if necessary, evacuate or dial 911.
There are 9 fume hoods in the organic chemistry laboratory and 5 in the general chemistry lab. In each lab, you can find a Niederman high-efficiency fume extractor to create a fume-free workplace in the library. Different sizes of gloves are available in each lab for student use. Also in each lab, you'll find an emergency phone located on the instructor's benchtop. During your first visit to the laboratory, please make note of where the safety equipment is located in and around your work area.
It is doubtful that you complete a lab class without witnessing or being involved in a chemical spill. Luckily, most spills are minor, especially if they are treated immediately and appropriately. The first course of action upon spilling chemicals on your body is to remove the offending chemical. Most spills generally involve only the hands and the arms, in which case you will use the sink. For complete removal of the chemical, rinse the affected area for 15 minutes under cold running water. It is important to notify your instructor, who will line up emergency care if necessary. Occasionally, spills and burns will occur over a large portion of the body, which requires the use of the safety shower. Be aware of where the safety showers are located in each lab. In the event of a larger spill, the first course of action is to remove all contaminated clothing. This is not the time for shyness. Your clothing will absorb the chemicals. If you hold them close to your body, you will increase your exposure to it. Hold the handle of the shower to start the flow of water. Rinse for at least 15 minutes. It is important to notify your instructor so emergency care can be contacted if necessary. Depending on the chemical, burns or other negative health effects can resurface after 15 minutes of flushing.
The eyes are one of the most vulnerable parts of the body. Chemical spills to the hands or arms generally result with a few adverse effects or a minor illness which is usually temporary. A splash of that same chemical to the eye, however, will often result in temporary or even permanent blindness. Safety goggles are our first line of defense against eye injury. It is for this reason that safety goggles are always required while in the laboratory. However, should a chemical splash in the face or eyes ever occur, speedy and appropriate response will minimize damage. The first course of action is to flush the affected area with the eye wash fountain located in each lab. This fountain is designed to flood the eyes with water, rinsing away any problematic chemicals. First, immediately go to the nearest eye wash fountain and pull the handle to start the flow of water. Second, keep your eyes open under the running water and flush for at least 15 minutes. You may find it difficult to keep your eyes open as you flush them with water. In this case, use your free hand and hold your eyelids open. Finally, identify the offending chemical so that the emergency personnel know how to best treat the injury. If someone else's eyes are affected, please help them to the nearest eye wash fountain as they may have difficulty seeing. An environment like a chemistry laboratory creates a potential for serious injury. In the event of a cut or thermal burn, the first step is again to rinse the affected area with cold water. For small cuts or burns, each lab has a first aid kit with bandages to dress the wound. However, if you are uncertain with the severity of the injury, a trip to your personal physician will be required as our campus does not have an infirmary. For severe injuries, emergency services should be contacted by dialing 911 or pound 03879 for the campus's police desk using the laboratory phone. Finally, any accident or incident, no matter how minor, needs to be reported. Your instructor is required to fill up a lab incident report and file it with the department. Use the phone in each lab to dial 911 or pound 03879 for the campus police desk in the event of an emergency. This phone is for laboratory business only. When you speak to the operator, calmly provide 4 pieces of information: your name, the building, the room number, and the nature of the emergency. In the event of an emergency, it is imperative we take immediate and appropriate action. Be aware of the exit routes and the nearest stairwell in the building. Most likely, the nearest exit will not be the one you most regularly use, but will instead be at the end of the hallway. Remember to not use the elevators in the event of an emergency. Listen to the instruction that the alarm system gives. Stay calm and exit the building in an orderly manner. As you exit, move away from the building and go towards the Barnes & Noble's bookstore or go to the Convention Center parking lot as instructed by your instructor. Please move promptly so that you do not slow students behind you. Though you may have the inclination to join other sections as you exit, stay with your class so the instructor can take attendance once outside. You may return to the building when the alarm is off and the fire department permits re-entry. That's the end of our presentation. Thank you so much for watching, and we look forward to having you this semester.